As people, we often interact with things that predate us significantly. We wake up in our home that most likely stood the test of time before we lived in it, quite possibly even before we were born. Some things in your life are just a constant, like your parents, the home you grew up in, and sometimes that can be characters. There's Bugs Bunny, Mickey Mouse. But what about a video game character? There becomes an attachment, like a childhood blanket, where entertainment becomes a comfort object, and maybe even a diversion from your everyday life. As millennials, we grew up with video games. They've just been a constant in our life, from the NES springing upon the renaissance of home video gaming, through the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. Handheld gaming flooded the market with the Game Boy and Game Gear, and the jump to 3D with the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation. By the time I was born in 1995, there were already a slew of consoles, games, and years of fine-tuning. To me, there's no world without Mario. There's always been this little Italian guy with a red hat and a mustache that goes, wahoo, a bunch. Some of my earliest memories are of Mario. I was given a hand-me-down Super Nintendo with Super Mario World with it. I also played Super Mario 64 at a cousin's house or a friend's house as well. To me, those are Mario. These two games nail what makes Mario Mario. In Super Mario World, the weight of Mario as he jumps is perfect. The speed at which he runs feels fluid. The animation is superb. The power-ups feel so right, like the cape feather. Plus we got Yoshi. Who doesn't love Yoshi? The way the controller is laid out so you can rest your thumb over the two buttons at once and only use the tip of your finger to run and the pad of your finger to jump is one of the smartest iterations of a controller there ever was. I can only play the original Super Mario Bros. Games for the NES on the Super Nintendo with the Mario All-Stars version. I think the control scheme is just superior in every way. It's the most natural feeling way to play. It feels like the developers took all the best aspects of the previous Mario games and made the final hoorah to 2D Mario with Mario World. There's a connected world to explore with a huge variety of stages, secrets to find, new paths to choose, and new enemies to take down. I love the little cutscenes we get where Mario creatively takes down the castle that's standing in his way to rescue Princess Peach. It's just a cute little piece of storytelling. When people talk about which Mario game is theirs, Super Mario World is mine. The physics, the sounds, the level design, they just feel so natural to me, and I just keep going back to it over and over. It's 1996. 2D Mario has officially been perfected. Now there's only one direction to go, or you can probably go in a large amount of directions in a 3D space if you catch my drift. Mario 64 is the world's first mainstream 3D platformer. The game had to nail it from the get-go, and somehow they hit it out of the park. This was the point of our lives where we were introduced to the controlling of a video game character in 3D space. So how do they do it? They give you this monstrosity of a controller, and then they send you on your merry way and say, okay, go have fun now. But you're a kid, you figure it out, because that's what kids do. You have all the time in the world to do so. Moving the camera is a foreign concept to a lot of people. Mario 64 introduces the fact that you can move the camera to get different angles on screen with the idea that Mario is being filmed by a Lakitu. You can move it around by hitting the C buttons. It's a little janky, but for its purposes of Mario 64, I think it gets the job done. You even hear a sound when the camera moves to reiterate what it is you're doing and affirm that you're doing it right. You don't move the camera angle a lot in this game. It mostly puts you in the direction that you need to see. But I'm glad that you still have control of it, and get used to the idea that there will be a ton of games where you need to control the camera in the future. The movement in Super Mario 64 is groundbreaking. To be honest, I think it's the best feeling game of that entire generation. Just starting with the movement, I love how he leans from side to side whichever direction he goes. A lot of people assume that Mario got his athleticism from this game, but actually his side flip originated from Donkey Kong for the Game Boy. I think that was a really smart thing to bring back. It's just a fun move to pull off. You run in one direction and immediately go to the other, hit jump, and there you go. Not to mention the long jump from running, crouching, and then jumping. Look at that boy fly. Plus we get the introduction of the triple jump, a Mario staple that's been iterated in every 3D Mario game after that. The triple jumps are so fun to pull off because they're multi-part moves that the game will lay out for you to perfectly execute. Even just talking about the world that you explore and find new paths like Super Mario World, 64 has arguably the first 3D hub world in video gaming, where you have the main area to explore and use to go to new levels. Princess Peach offered you some cake so you can go to a visit, run up to the castle, get a camera tutorial from the Lakitu, and Peach is nowhere to be found. There's literally only one door that you can go into, so you make your way into a big painting room. There's nothing else in the room to go to but the big painting, so you run up to it, see that it's flowing like water. Bam! You're in the first level, Bomb Bomb Battlefield. This song has such a chokehold on my love of music. It's so funky. It sets such a huge stage. Bud, where are you going? It sets such a huge stage for this sprawling world for Mario to explore. There's some pink bomb-bombs that don't want to hurt you. I'm guessing that's why they're pink. A big-ass chain chomp in the back, and King Babam on top of the mountain pondering. Let's go get him. Right around this time of my life, of course, I wanted a Nintendo 64 myself. My cousin had one, a friend of mine had one as well. So when I was in kindergarten, I got the Pikachu N64 for Christmas that I still use to this day. That was around the time that my parents were getting a divorce. I would say that this is around the time where I started turning to video games for comfort. My mom asked me a few times over the years if I really remembered anything about them separating. And to be honest, I don't really. I remember some small details about where we were staying or just about them being separated. But to be honest, I remember small vivid details, but that's because of something specific. I remember even though my parents were separated that we were still spending Christmas together. I remember my dad opening up the laundry chute and taking out his presents that he got me. They were, of course, games for the N64, which were Pokemon Stadiums 1 and 2. Obviously, I was very excited for those. We were also staying at my grandma's house, and I remember picking up Super Mario 64 and plugging it in at the TV at my grandmother's house, to which did not have air conditioning. This memory is literally seared into my brain, and I don't know if it's because of how much I love the game or the heat stroke, but in a kind of time of turmoil, I always had video games to fall back on. Very early on, I was brought up in a lot of different places. Obviously our house, then my aunt's house, my grandma's house, and eventually my mom's new apartment and my dad's new condo. But the only constant in my life was Mario. Nostalgia could be a really funny thing because on paper, your parents separating and living in all these different places could be a little bit tumultuous, but I look back on that time pretty fondly. I'm not somebody who loves change, but I had something to entertain me. I was able to transport myself into a world where the only things I really had to worry about were getting stars and swinging around Bowser. My partner Kira and I always talk about if we were to go back in time, where would we go? And we both would really love to see what our childhoods were like going through our eyes again. Even though this time was crazy for me, I would love to go back and re-experience some of these games again. Mario 64 wasn't the only game I was obsessed with at the time. I saw a friend play this at his house, and at one point I knew that this was a game that I needed to get. The music was seared into my brain. The idea that Mario and his friends are 2D but the rest are 3D blew my 6-year-old mind. By that time, I played all my other games to death, like Pokemon Stadium, Hey You Pikachu, and of course Mario 64. I got this game at a perfect time. In fact, another core memory is plugging this game into my dad's TV in his bedroom because I didn't have one in my room at the time. I'm playing through the beginning of the game where you go back to Peach's castle. You can explore and talk with literally all these people alongside Luigi. Bowser shows up, takes control of the castle, and literally defeats you. You're found by some other Goombas, friendly ones, and then you gotta beat up some less friendly ones, and thus starts your journey. At no point was I thinking, hey, my life is kind of weird right now. My parents aren't together anymore, and I have to switch schools, and I'm not going to see my friends anymore, and I kind of don't even have a bedroom right now. That doesn't even matter to me right now. The storybook motif in this game is great. If you didn't know, that's where the paper idea comes from. Mario and his friends are made out of paper, and the rest of the world is kind of constructed out of other paper materials, because it's all in a storybook. It's also a much more story-driven game than Mario's other adventures. There's dialogue, a turn-based battle system, party members that you collect through the game. It's not a traditional Super Mario game, but it also super is. What makes a Mario game? There's the main guy, right? He jumps around, doesn't exactly say wahoo, but it's implied. We got coins, Goombas, and Luigi's there too. That's always great, but we also have super tight gameplay. There's something about Mario games that makes movement so satisfying. Yes, you can walk around, but you can also do this little spin thing. It's not necessary, there's a handful of uses for it, but it also makes you move a little bit faster. You slow down to a halt once you're at the end of your spin cycle, but you can spin right back up and get up to speed. Even with this speed up move, it doesn't make much of a difference. I don't think it makes any difference really, but it doesn't make you want to do it any less. Okay, you got walking, but what about battling? That's like the main gameplay, so obviously it was super well thought out as well. At the beginning of the game, it's a super traditional RPG model. You choose your move, it does it on the opposing player, and then when you get hit, the battle ends until somebody dies. Very early on in the game, you meet up with Twink, who's your liaison with Princess Peach, and he gives you the ability to time your attacks to give you more damage, and you can also defend against it as well. Throughout the game, you get power-ups through badges and get stronger through battling. It's your typical RPG fare, but it's also a great introduction to the genre for kids who have never played them before. When I was younger, I had Chrono Trigger, and I tried playing it multiple times, but I couldn't quite get the grasp of the battling system, and didn't know where I should go next. Paper Mario was way simpler to figure out, with the world beautifully designed and easier to grasp for someone my age. Luckily, I found love for Chrono Trigger later in life, and I still have a lot of nostalgia for it. The music in Paper Mario is really top-notch. Every time I hear the Shooting Star Summit theme, I'm instantly transported back to being a kid playing as Pikachu N64 in a dark room, and he's all alone. But he's really not. The years go on, I am still playing video games the entire time. There's new ones, revisiting old ones, even sequels to games that I've talked about. Super Mario Sunshine comes out on the Nintendo GameCube, and it's everything I loved about Mario 64, and gave it such a fun, tropical theme with new mechanics to shake things up. There are special bonus levels that are fun and sometimes frustrating to get through as well. It's gotten mixed reception over the years because of some difficulty curves, and some fans didn't think it had as much creativity or replayability as Mario 64. But it's still a really important game to me. The theming and the story around it really cut through to me. Paper Mario received a sequel as well called Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door. I remember picking this up with my grandma on the way home from the Daffodil Festival. I remember because I bought it with my own money. And then when we got back, I started playing the game and I stopped hanging out with my grandma. And then I got in trouble with my dad for not spending time with my grandma. Who could resist Paper Mario? I really love this game. It's everything good about Paper Mario and gives it another unique feeling with the Hub World Rogue port. It almost gives it a more realistic kind of European town feeling, and even a grander story than the original game. In 2005, Nintendo unveiled the Nintendo Revolution, which was shown to feature motion controls, a mechanic a 10-year-old has always dreamed of being able to try out. It was officially announced as the Wii the next year before the Electronic Entertainment Expo, or E3 for short. I remember seeing coverage for it on G4 TV, a gaming TV network where at the time it was the easiest way to keep up with gaming news, just before gaming and gaming news was really about to hit its peak in 2010s with the rise of high-speed internet. The Wii was everything I wanted. When it was released during the summer right before Christmas, it was impossible to find. Much like modern console releases, scalpers grabbing up stock and were selling them for crazy profit margin. When I was around that age, I was definitely aware of my parents' financial situations. I knew that we definitely didn't have a lot of money. My parents didn't make that obvious, although I definitely feel like I didn't ask for a lot, although if you ask them now, they would probably say that I did. But I will tell you, it's probably because I kept asking for the Wii. In retrospect, the Wii was actually my most anticipated video game console of all time. The gimmick was so cool. I loved the idea of motion controls. I wanted it so bad. I wasn't able to get it until Christmas the next year. All credit due to my parents, I was actually able to get one, but that wait sucked. That Christmas was awesome. I remember bringing the Wii over to my family Christmas party and having everyone make a me, and everyone loved trying out Wii bowling. It was a smash hit. For my birthday, which was right around the corner, I got a gift from my grandma, and it was eventually to be seen as the most perfect video game that I have ever played. Super Mario Galaxy was not a game that I ever anticipated being one of my favorites, let alone being a game that was important to me in my life. Being able to look back at it sometime and revisit it recently, it's crazy how important that game is to me. In 2008, I turned 13 years old, and I just received one of my most anticipated video game consoles of all time. Some time has passed. I'm 13 now. My dad remarried, and I have a new little brother who's 3 at the time, or yeah, he just turned 3. And I've been consistently going to my dad's every weekend. To be honest, things are feeling fine now. There's been consistency of my life, which I needed. I have a very distinct memory of being in my dad and stepmom's basement and opening up that present. I threw on the game as quickly as I could. The beginning of the game is almost identical to a combination of Mario 64 and Paper Mario. We get the small storybook telling of the Shooting Star Festival, harkening back to some of Paper Mario. Princess Peach invites you to the castle to watch the Star Festival while you're on your way to the castle is being bombarded by Bowser's brigade. That's a lot of bees. He yet again grabs Peach's castle and flies it up into space, knocking down Mario, only this time being flung out into the void. This entire opening is probably the most intense prologue of any Mario game. They are able to animate it at a much higher level than the previous games. The music, the camera angles, the panic in all the toads. It's a really cool scene. It raises the stakes. After that, it all stops at Mario waking up on a small planetoid. The camera rolls back, and there you are. You can explore the small planet. It's the epitome of serene. The music is light, you're running around, discovering that this game uses gravity to its advantage. It's a game mechanic now. Your long jump from Mario 64 never felt so good when you can use it to whip yourself around a small planet and traverse long distances. When the appeal to your video game is how fun it is just to move around in space, that shows that you put a lot of time into developing how good the game feels. It's a Nintendo staple, especially for a platformer like Mario. Mario is led to Rosalina, Princess of the Cosmos, and she gives you help to find your special one. By granting you power to travel through space, Aluma, which is a small star, gives you an extra spin that helps you defeat enemies, as well as gets you to harder to reach places. You're then going through a small area that helps you learn the mechanics of the game. It isn't a hard game to learn at all. Practically anybody who's not well versed in video games can probably pick it up and learn quite easily. The game plays with a Wiimote and a nunchuck. The nunchuck has a little joystick that you can walk around with, and then this little bad boy has the A button where you jump, then you shake it to spin. You can also grab some objects using the Wii's motion controls, and start bits using the pointer and hitting the B button. It's one of the most comfortable and ergonomic ways to ever play a video game. You can put your hands down here, and it's just great. It's one of my favorite ways to play games. Once you get to the end of the tutorial, you will get a Grand Star. These bring you back to the Comet Observatory, your hub world that you can view galaxies and slingshot you to different levels. The levels are quite different from what we've seen before in a Mario game. The majority of the levels are separated into different chunks, and then you get to different parts of the level through warp stars. You can shake your Wiimote and fly through space, right where you need to go. This is where we talk about linearity in Mario games. The first 3D Mario game gives you almost total control over what order you want to play the game in. The only thing that holds you back is the amount of stars that you have, and a few stages that require you to beat other levels before getting them, to unlock certain things that you need to happen. Even when you're in the world, you can do most of the star missions in any order that you want, just some of the missions are required to be picked first. The levels are cohesive. They're all relatively explorable with different items getting unlocked or just traveling by foot. With Paper Mario, it's a relatively linear story. You go from part A to part B, but you can still go back to other levels that you've been. It's just rare and usually unnecessary. With Mario Galaxy, there are a few levels that are entirely explorable and you can do some backtracking and exploring. But for the most part, you're brought to very different areas, and you often can't go back due to the Slink Stars shooting you through space. The game guides you through a path that you need to go on. With this method of gameplay, the developers can painstakingly design levels to be as well crafted as they want. Every bit of design of each level is intentional, and shows that the level of love and crafting ability to make these worlds and puzzles that are so well thought out. I feel like Mario Galaxy was a playground for Nintendo's developers to make the most fun video game possible. The way the game is designed, it feels definitely inspired from the bonus levels in the Super Mario Sunshine game, with the way that they're self-contained and have some platforming challenges. I think the thing that stands out about this game is that it's the amalgamation of fun. Every level brings something unique to the table. The first terrace levels, you get Goday Galaxy, Honey Hive Galaxy, Loop-de-Loop Galaxy, Flip Switch Galaxy, and Bowser Jr.'s Robot Reactor. All of these galaxies have a unique feel to them, and each stage in each galaxy provides a theme. Goday Galaxy is showing the ropes of what a galaxy can be, and giving you a unique boss to fight in the very first level. Honey Hive Galaxy gives you a more of an open area that you can explore, and you will drop in certain places and set in different challenges for you, depending on that star that you're going for. Loop-de-Loop Galaxy shows you that you can traverse water using a unique way by turning the Wiimote, and Flip Switch Galaxy is a bonus level that is just a little puzzle for you to solve in a satisfying way. It's capped off with a boss battle with Bowser Jr., who was established in Super Mario Sunshine, and you get your first earned Grand Star to help with the Comet Observatory running again. That was only the beginning of the game. It's time to have fun. At the time, I thought Mario Galaxy was very fun. I would even probably go as far as to say it's a great game. But when I was looking back, I didn't really think too much of it. I always harken back to Super Mario 64, or even Mario Sunshine as being my favorites. I played through Super Mario Galaxy 2 as well, which iterated everything fun from the game and made it even better. I put them personally next to each other if I was ranking them. It was a game I didn't think it was worth returning to though. As an adult, in 2017 the Nintendo Switch was released and I was incredibly stoked. I started getting back into mainstream Nintendo as the rise of YouTube gaming content was at the forefront, and Nintendo's unique spin on the handheld and docked gaming system got the world at large excited. It wasn't long until the next 3D Mario game was announced. It's Super Mario Odyssey. It's a return to form with the open sandbox type Mario games like Mario 64 or Sunshine. There's a trailer that featured an accompanying song called Jump Up Superstar, and I'm just gonna be honest with you. The song is a swinging jazz number that's a love letter to the Mario franchise, which shaped me as a person. The games that were there for me when I felt like I didn't have anywhere else to go. It brings me to tears. And yes, I'm a 28-year-old man. I'm in touch with my feelings.
Here we go, off the rails. Don't you know it's time to raise our sails? It's freedom like you never knew. Don't need bags or a pass. Say the word, I'll be there in a flash. You could say my hat is off to you. Oh, we can zoom all the way to the moon from this great wide wacky world. Jump with me, grab coins with me, oh yeah.
The game comes out and it's fantastic. It's everything I've wanted in a sandbox Mario game. It harkens back to Mario 64 and I enjoy it quite a lot. But there's something that doesn't quite scratch that itch for me. There's a ton of moons that are collectibles, like stars are in previous games. It just feels almost impossible to collect them all. Come to think of it, there was only one Mario game that I ever felt compelled to get all 120 stars. In 2020, we hit the 35th anniversary of Super Mario. There's a Nintendo Direct on YouTube announcing all the anniversary plans of the franchise, including, to my surprise, a collection of Mario's 3D adventures, including Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy. I'm stoked for this for sure. I often go back to 64, watch people play Sunshine on YouTube pretty often, but never really returned much to Super Mario Galaxy because I was on the Wii, which I didn't really return too much. You have to set up the center bar for the Wii. It was mostly just an inconvenience for a game I really liked but didn't really have the same affinity for with the previous ventures. When the collection comes out, it was an obvious day one purchase because of how much I used to play it. I blasted through Mario 64 in a day. Took a couple of days to beat Super Mario Sunshine, and it wasn't quite as good as I remembered, but it was still exciting to see love given to a game that felt forgotten by Nintendo. It was pretty soon after that I revisited Super Mario Galaxy. And boy, did I not realize how perfect that game is. Seeing Super Mario Galaxy in HD for the first time, it truly is the most gorgeous Mario game, even beating out its successors for sure. The moment I see the picture book aesthetic in the prologue in the game, and the beautifully orchestrated soundtrack, it's enough to bring a grown man to tears. When you go to the library and watch Rosalina read the storybook and how she came to be, it just blasts me back to when I was a kid, feeling alone, not sure what the future held for me. At the moment, Super Mario Galaxy doesn't feel like just a fairy tale. It feels like home. I truly know what made the game so special. Why every level feels worth playing. Why every star feels deserved. Why collecting them all just to play through the game with Luigi instead is hilarious and worth playing again because you just don't want to stop playing it. When talking about favorite games of all time, video games are constantly being improved and perfected. They're basically playable movies now. We have fantastic graphics, heart-wrenching stories, super challenging gameplay. But to me, I can't think of a game and not compare it to a Mario game. Nothing could be bigger and better than a Galaxy.